Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. On this channel, we talk about problems people face in their day-to-day lives. Let's start with a video.
My dad left when I was a little kid. I didn't understand what it meant then until later when I matured a little more. I had thought that he traveled and would be back. Each time I asked my mom where my dad was, she was quiet, but let me believe that he traveled since that was what I thought anyways. It was in my teenage years that I realized that Dad wasn't coming back, and it hurt like hell. So, it was just my mom and I against the world. I wasn't so close to my mom because I was more of Daddy's girl, so my dad leaving impacted me greatly. You would think that it would foster a better relationship with my mom, but that never really happened. Yes, she was my mom, and she gave birth to me, but we just didn't have that flower, that rapport, where I was comfortable with and we could have a decent conversation. At the age of 18, I moved out of the house to fend for myself and see what would become of me. I got into university and went through school while doing my own side jobs. I always had a thing for business, so most of the time I would sell some things to my classmates. I just basically always did something that had to do with business. Years down the line, I was doing pretty much okay, but my mom was getting older, and there are some jobs that she could no longer do. She got laid off work some months back and couldn't afford living expenses, so I told her to come live with me. It was easy for me to do that because I lived alone in my apartment. I didn't think that it would be a problem because I was now an adult, so I didn't think that she would try to police me or make me feel like I was still that little girl living under her roof. She made me feel like I couldn't handle myself and my home and treated me like a kid. The most annoying part was having to do all the chores alone. I work most of the day and only have one day off during the week. I can't spend my day off just cleaning the whole apartment when we both could have done it and made our work easier. I was no longer a little girl. Things were different now. In fact, it was the opposite. She was the older lady living under my roof, so I don't think that she should be making the rules or telling me what to do. For a few months I tolerated her and did what she wanted me to do, but now I can't take it anymore, and I honestly want her out of my apartment, but I can't do that. I can't leave her on the streets, so I'll have to find a way to let her know my mind. One day I came back home and I noticed that the house was dirty, and Mom was home all day. The plates in the sink could have easily gone into the dishwasher. Everywhere looked scattered and untidy. I thought that Mom would know to do something about it and ensure that the apartment was clean. If I was providing everything for her, then doing chores was the least she could do. I didn't think that I would have to ask her to do that. It was just an unspoken reality. I am not asking her to pay me for staying in my house, but it is just courtesy. I needed to rest, so I ignored everything and went to bed. When I came out of my room, she was complaining and telling me how dirty I was because I didn't clean my house. She said that because she was in the house, I needed to make sure it was clean. That annoyed me because I literally provide everything for her, so I expected that she would clean up after herself because most of the untidiness was caused by her. I didn't understand what she was saying. It made zero sense to me. If she wanted things done, she was going to get chores. I went ahead and I made a list of things that we had to do as the house, daily and weekly, and I threw it into her face. I told her that those were her chores, and if she couldn't do them, she should leave the house because I wasn't going to be paying the bills, catering for food, and everything. Basically, doing everything that I had to do and still left the house early to come back late while she stayed in the house doing nothing but getting the whole place dirty and still expecting me to do the chores. If she wasn't going to do it herself, she could leave my house. AITA? When I threw the list at her, it became a big deal. This mother of mine almost broke down the roof shouting at me and telling me how disrespectful I was and how she was privileged because it was her turn to enjoy my money. She said she wasn't going to do any chores and that I had to clean everywhere because it was my job to do it. She also spoke about me taking care of her and making sure she was okay instead of stressing her. That was funny to me My mom wasn't even that old. She was just 51, so it made no sense why she would not clean after herself. I literally leave the house at 7 a.m. in the morning to come back late, and she expects me to do all these things when half of the time I'm not in the house. When I lived alone, I didn't have to clean that much because I cleaned after myself, so there's no way that I will do all those things she's asking me. If she was uncomfortable with the way the house was, she was free to do something about it. She called me lazy and that I was the reason why I wasn't married and nobody was going to want to live with me. This reminded me why we were not close and I couldn't have a decent conversation with my mother. It was a given that she would say something ridiculous and out of place. I just wished that I had enough funds to get her a house of her own so she could just leave me the hell alone. But I guess this is what I have to do. I was going to come to the living room to chill, but I just grabbed a snack. I ran back to bed to avoid her for the rest of the night. The next morning, I came out and the house was still the same way I left it. I went to work and hoped that it would be clean by the time I came back. To my surprise, everything was the same and in fact even worse. I told her that she had to leave and she was going to because I couldn't deal with it anymore. I couldn't have somebody living in my house turning the place into a mess. Regardless of the fact that she was my mom, it didn't make any sense to me and I wasn't going to try to make it make sense. So I told her that she had to leave in the next week or decide to pick up some chores. I didn't mind if we shared the chores, but she had to mind the way she spoke to me. It wasn't my duty to clean up after her, even though she was my mother. So I let her choose. By the way, I spoke to her. I think she figured that I wasn't joking and I meant every word that I told her, so she became quiet and she started cleaning. She literally went to the kitchen, picked up a broom, and started to clean. It wasn't that difficult after all. Why do we have to get here? Why did we have to have a long conversation? I spoke to one of my colleagues at work about what was going on in my house, and she said I was being an a-hole for asking my mother to clean the house or do some chores, but I didn't agree with her at all. Maybe because she isn't my favorite person in the world, so I guess I don't care, but I'm not going to be cleaning somebody else's mess after I have a long day at work. It's been a week now, and my mama seems to be a changed person. She cleans up after herself, and when I get home every day, it's clean, and she even bought some groceries. I wonder who this person in my house is. She's so much nicer to me now. All I needed to do was give her some shit. Wow. I guess you didn't want to be homeless. But at the end of the day, it was just a threat. But I just needed to do something, anything to make sure that she understood that she had to do chores. I guess we're good now. Maybe, just maybe, I may begin to have a relationship with my mom, a good one, because she seems like a different person. She's not cranky and annoying or trying to find fault in everything I do now. YTA, from reading your story, it seems to me like you're a rude person, because why would you expect your mom to clean up herself and to do the cleaning regardless of the fact that she took care of you when you were younger? So there's no reason why you can do the same for her at this time, and you should have been more gentle in the way that you spoke to her. NTA, I'm not going to clean up anybody's mess. If you make a mess, you clean it up. If you were in my house, you would make sure that you did some chores, especially if I'm busy. I don't think you did anything wrong. You leave the house early, and your mom's home all day. So I don't see the big deal here.
Next story.
I, female 18, have kind of curly hair. It's like halfway, I guess. The bottom curls a lot, but near my scalp it doesn't curl nearly as much. Because of my curls, if I brush my hair, it turns into a giant poofy lion's mane, basically. It's all frizzy and staticky and just looks bad. However, I didn't really discover this until I was 14. My hair was wild growing up. Well, growing up, my grandma always made a fuss over my hair. No matter what you did, it'd be frizzy when dry. So every time I was at her house, she'd have me brush my hair because she never believed that I had already brushed it. I hope you can see where this is going. Some additional context. I haven't seen my grandma in a few years due to going to a boarding school in a different country. I stayed there for about 2 years, but on breaks, I'd only see my parents and friends, not my grandparents. When I returned home for good, my grandparents moved away and I didn't get the chance to see them due to COVID. Well, I finally got the chance to see my grandparents again, and we went to their house for the weekend. With the way my hair is now, it's a bit frizzy as it's drying, but when it's completely dry, the frizz becomes a lot less noticeable due to the curls. I also finger brush to minimize the frizz. My grandma saw me while my hair was drying and told me to go brush my damn hair, and that by this age I should already know how to brush my hair. I told her that brushing my hair so much is what made my hair so frizzy, so I refused. She told me that was BS and that I'd better brush it before our special brunch. I just ignored her for the most part and went into the guest room to do homework. That was until our special brunch when I came out of the room to leave. My grandma saw me and my curls and said, "Look at how much better your hair looks when it's brushed. I told you so." I was literally dumbfounded. Did she seriously think my hair was brushed? LMFAO. I told her it wasn't brushed. And she didn't believe me, so I went and got a brush, walked up to her, and brushed my hair. Wouldn't you know it, it was a disaster. The look on her face was priceless. She got all angry at me, saying that I just ruined her family photos. Guess that's why the brunch was so special. And that I needed to fix my hair. I told her there was nothing I could do now, and she was the one who told me to brush my hair anyway. My mom said I was an a-hole for this, but my dad said that it was hilarious. Away from my mom, of course. Though I do kind of see why I'm an a-hole, because she paid for a professional photographer, which I didn't know until she told me after the fact. LOL. And she already told me my hair looked good, and I ruined it on purpose to spite her. So yeah, AITA? Wow, this blew up. Thank you all. I just woke up, by the way. LOL. But while my grandma is stubborn and stuck in her ways, I still love her. She's usually good to be around. It's just me needing to look presentable. Also, my mom and grandma both have straight hair, for those wondering. Thank you for all of your support and tips, though. NTA, fellow curly-haired person here, and I can definitely relate. I was tortured in middle school because of my hair. I would brush it and would get frizzy. People, students and teachers, would bully me, ask why I never brushed my hair, etc. So I'd brush it even more, and it would be even worse. And this was 20 years ago, so there weren't as many options in curly hair care. Curly hair and brushes do not go together. Even ones that are made for curly hair cause mine to become a mess. NTA. She got what she asked for. I'm siding with your dad here. 100% hilarious. My kid has curly hair. Sounds curlier than yours. My mom kept bugging her to brush, and she did the same. Luckily, we didn't have photos. While I laughed, I sent her to at least get her hair wet so it could dry properly again. BTW. To battle the dryness, try a few hair oils. My kid uses coconut and argan to keep the curls nice and the frizz in check. Also, a wide tooth comb.
Next story.
My twin sister and I, 23, female, have had a good relationship since we were born. I loved her with all her rights and wrongs. I used to admire her so much because whenever she wanted to accomplish something, she did it and made it look easy in the process. We both liked to spend our days learning new languages and taking courses to learn some important skills for when we became grown up. We watched each other's backs. Nevertheless, she's always been the rebel one. Our country is kind of dangerous. When our mom had finally allowed us to go out, she set rules to follow to be able to go out again. As soon as we stepped out of the house, my sister would tell me to do the opposite. If I wanted us both to respect her boundaries instead of going to an alcohol drinking bar with a bunch of grown-up asses until late at night, she would laugh at me in front of our friends. We were 15 years old when it happened. It all got worse as soon as we turned 18. My sister got a well-paid job and started treating the rest of the family like crap. My mom is an angel and very sensitive when it comes to us. My sister knows, so she would threaten to leave the house if my mom didn't let her spend the whole day in her room doing nothing and go out until 3 a.m. She even escaped for complete days several times and came back home without explaining anything to prove that she wasn't playing. All her will to study and become a genius vanished. She became a horrible person who would manipulate my mom, treat my dad as a joke with no authority to even express himself, and treat me as a servant because I helped Mom with all the chores she refused to help her with. Both of my parents lost their jobs last year. My sister would buy food only for her and eat it locked in her room. She didn't care at all if we didn't have anything to eat. The worst part of all this is that she never recalls doing anything when confronted days after. And if she does, she changes the whole story to say that she acts this way because we're a toxic family and she's punishing us for it. This woman, because it's been happening for 3 years and counting, was using our Wi-Fi, sleeping in our bed, eating the food we get without any of her help, not doing any house chores, being offered opportunities to study in a very important college thanks to my mom's contacts, being offered therapy, and we're all the toxic ones here? I'm a college student and I'm not able to get a job because of the requirements of my scholarship, but I do my best at helping my mom by making small businesses, and my father tries his best on his end as well. My sister doesn't live with us anymore, but she has the same behavior whenever she needs something from my mom and visits us to get it. And we don't talk to each other because of all she does. My mom always says that I'm doing the wrong thing by refusing to forgive her and forget. AITA for not forgiving her? NTA, you are a human and you are reacting to your sister's recent behavior. This may not be applicable to your situation at all, but I have read that mental illnesses sometimes manifest in the late teens to early 20s. The National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI, is a very good source. It can be helpful for people wondering if a loved one might be showing signs of this. I personally found it very helpful. I wish you good luck in your very confusing and difficult situation. NTA, your sister won't change and be the family member you need. She's pushed boundaries and knows that she can treat you all like crap because she's been allowed to do so. You're not wrong in your thinking. IMO, NC is the best way to deal with my sister. Your parents need to set boundaries and do not cave because it is important to make sure your sister knows her behavior won't be tolerated anymore.